The first thing you learn at Naval Station Guantánamo Bay is which fences are for keeping people out and which are for keeping people in. On my second week as a contract interpreter, I could trace the difference by sound. The outward fences hummed with the wind off the bay. The inner ones throbbed faintly from generators that never slept. By then I'd stopped jolting at the clank of steel doors and the distant bullhorns. What I hadn't gotten used to was the quiet that came after a transfer flight. 100 little noises turning into a silence with a pulse. That afternoon the sky looked ironed flat, the color of a bruise. A storm warning scrolled across the base network, and sailors double-checked tie-downs on pallets near the airstrip. My escort, Petty Officer Ruiz, walked me toward the interview rooms between Camp Echo and the medical clinic. He was young, careful with his words, and always carried a roll of wintergreen gum he pretended not to share. Storm surge might drown the road by midnight, he said. You get stuck on leeward. You're sleeping on a cot by the vending machines. I've slept on worse, I said. He smirked. We both knew the cots weren't the worst here. Inside interview 2, the air conditioning fought the humidity and lost. A camera blinked in the corner. My detainee for the day, Abdul Rahman, cross-referenced as 946, sat on the other side of the table in a beige jumpsuit. His file said he'd once taught math in a provincial school, then fallen into a clearing operation like a stone into a well. For months he'd refused to speak. But 2 nights ago he'd slipped a note to a corpsman during vitals. Interpreter only. I introduced myself in Arabic, and he watched my mouth like a student over a chalkboard. I could feel Ruiz's attention from behind the glass. The storm groaned, a long drag-down sound across sheet metal. "Why interpreter only?" I asked. He lifted his hands, palms up, the cuffs letting off a soft click. "Because you are not afraid of ghosts," he said. "We don't do ghosts," I said, before I could catch the reflex. He smiled, small. "In my block," he said, "a man who is not a man speaks at night. He knows names." I glanced at the camera. The red light winked patience. "You mean a detainee?" "No. He stands where the cameras cannot see." "Everyone is on camera," I said, translating each word into something Ruiz could understand over the feed. But Abdul Rahman shook his head as if I had missed the point of a proof. "I have a name for him," he said. "The Walker." He pushed forward, and the chain under the table gave a hard announce. "He said your name to me before we met." My mouth went dry. "What name is that?" He leaned so close I could smell saline and starch. "Maya," he said. A whisper, but the mic caught it anyway. I hadn't told the detainees my name. My badge used initials. Somewhere behind the glass, Ruiz shifted. "Who told you?" I asked. "The Walker." Outside, wind shouldered the building. The lights dimmed, returned. A long crackle from a speaker. I kept my voice even. "What does he want?" "To leave," Abdul Rahman said. "But not alone." He sat back, chains settling. "He says the storm is his door." I wrote the name in my notebook and felt the building tip toward the bay, as if the whole base listened for waves big enough to wash secrets clean. The storm hit after dusk, flattening the bay to hammered steel. Sirens moaned twice. Weather, not breach. Then the ops center rolled to generators. Ruiz handed me a poncho. "If we lose the causeway," he said, "we're 2 islands again." His gum clicked. "Ciao now or later?" "Later." My stomach had shut its shutters. Movements were cut to essentials. On the catwalk, a Marine corporal leaned into the wind. "You hear about the blind?" he shouted. "Echo's camera 13 went snow before count. Tech says mast flex. Chief says flex doesn't speak names." Names. The notebook in my pocket felt like a hot coin in the tech shop. Racks of monitors flickered as gusts bullied the towers. Kim, the senior tech, wore headphones around her neck like a spare set of ears. 13, I said. Static filled the screen, alive. She tapped controls. Intermittent power dips on the pole. Gust loads, salt spray. It happens. The corporal said it spoke. He also says chow coffee can degrease a rifle. She stopped. There was an anomaly. 30 seconds pre-wideout, the motion box pinged. Pixel shift. Could be rain. Could be spurious. Could be the walker, I said, hating myself for it. Kim looked at me. I told her about 946, minus the part where he knew my name. She shrugged. This place had a lighthouse before a prison. Every light leaves a shadow. We just stack them. Back at Echo, Ruiz signed out an extra flashlight and said we'd walk the corridor past 13 during the next check. The hallway smelled of bleach and wet boots. Rain drummed, retreated, drummed again. A guard rubbed the segregated patch on his vest and muttered a grandmother's prayer. We stopped under camera 12, then the dark glass of 13, then 14. My radio hissed, cleared. The storm granted a held breath. Condensation ran in silver lines along the ceiling seam. There, Ruiz said, to the far end, near the yard door, the air thickened, as if rain had braided itself into a denser thread. My light found only wet cinder block. The door chain clinked once. You saw that, Ruiz said. Refraction, I said, because you need a floor for your thoughts. Pressure wave hit the door and the lights died. We fell into a black, so complete my mind invented shapes to fill it. My hand found Ruiz's sleeve. He squeezed, and then the generator caught, a cough resolving into breath. Emergency lights lit floor. In that thin glow, the door stood open 2 inches. Latch should hold, he murmured. He strode forward, pulled it shut, tested it twice. Secure. He tried a joke. No ghosts. Behind us, a voice spoke in clean, sea-wet Arabic. Maya. We turned together. The corridor was empty. Only my radio chirped a weather update I couldn't hear over my own pulse. We finished the round. Back in the control bubble, the watch logged a brief power loss and a door ajar. Yet someone had been outside the wire during the lull. Kim texted, Motion 13. 3 pings. No body. I typed back, wind. She sent a single DOT'd at T2300. A detainee count on Bravo block came up short, then corrected. The guard blamed the new guy reading tags. A minute later, the count printer spat a paper snake of question marks. The storm pushed a gust. The walls ticked. From the speaker above the camera bank I heard the name again. My voice played back at a speed that made it swim. Maya, said the speaker. Let him leave. By midnight the causeway flooded, and the base split into windward and leeward. Flights grounded. Boats tied down. The storm bullied the roofs. I checked on Abdul Rahman in medical, where he had been moved after a cough turned into something like bronchitis. The corpsman on duty swore he hadn't seen anyone near the room except nursing and the roving watch. Abdul Rahman sat on his cot, and 4 fluttering. He looked better in the sterile light than he had in interview 2. The door opened, he said in Arabic. I heard the chain. That corridor's door sticks in humidity, I said. He lifted one eyebrow. The walker does not need hinges. You're sure he wants to leave? He wants to be chosen. He needs a name to carry. He looked at me. This place is full of names. Ruiz hovered beside the door. We're cutting to half rounds, he said. Tech's asking for a temporary shutdown on the 13 tower until the gusts drop. The chief says no. Bad optics. Kim texted me a still, a corridor frame with a smear of darker pixels just to the side of the motion box. I typed, "I'll file the paperwork, DT0115. Bravo Block's printer stopped spitting punctuation and coughed out a name instead. Not mine. An old one, attached to a detainee who had died years back and been repatriated. The watch sergeant made me read the logs to be sure. The dead man's number had been used as a request code once, during a hunger strike, to coordinate delivery of salt packets and honey. The system should have scrubbed it. The system had not scrubbed it. Tell me we're not about to get hammered by a FOIA request," the sergeant muttered. "Systems burp during storms," I said, but my throat felt tight. 0200. A shiver ran through the base, a sound like a train passing underground. Generators shifted. Lights browned, returned. In medical, a nurse's station screen jumped to black, then blue, then to a login in a font I'd never seen used on base. When it came back, Abdul Rahman's monitor showed an alarm. Lead OFF. The corpsman fixed the clip and frowned. Ruiz and I took one more corridor walk. The rain fell clean instead of sideways. By camera 13, the emergency floor lights trembled. I stopped under the blank lens. "If you were a person," I said, "you'd avoid cameras. If you were wind, you wouldn't bother the chain twice." Ruiz leaned on the wall. "If you were a person, you'd need a card." He tapped the reader by the yard door. "Or someone inside." Our radios clicked. "Medical to Echo Corridor," the watch called. "We have a detainee requiring transport in the next 30. Roads under," Ruiz said. "Clinic corridor only," the watch said. "And Maya, bring your notebook." I flipped the notebook open while we walked, pretending to check translations, really reading the margins where I keep phonetic notes. My name sat there in block letters from orientation day, when I'd practiced signing the intake forms. If someone had skimmed the clipboard, they could have copied it. Simple as that. A human trick, not a haunting, and somehow worse. Worse because it implicates. Halfway to medical, the lights stuttered again. The door at the end of the hall swung inward as if a hand, very steady, had finally grown tired of asking. Medical's corridor smelled of iodine and rain. 2 medics in slickers waited with a covered stretcher and a lieutenant I didn't know. His hood shadowed his face. "Interpreter," he said. "I'm here," I said. "What's the move?" "Echo to clinic hold," he answered. "Authorization on file." His voice was precise, unhurried. "Whose?" Ruiz asked. "Operations." "Verbal." The lieutenant glanced at my notebook. "We need the name for chain." He meant mine. "Which patient?" 946, he said. "Abdul Rahman isn't scheduled to move. New guidance." My radio crackled. A clipped voice. "Proceed." "Maya, confirm." The syllables ran together like water. Kim texted, "Badge pings outside your door." Name Walker. I tried to see the lieutenant's name. The wet flap of his jacket kept moving. "Orders," I said. He showed a waterproof folder, faint photocopies, a scrawl for a signature, a control number I didn't know. "Sir," Ruiz said, "we stage inside and verify with watch." "Procedures are in motion," the lieutenant said. 2 sailors pushed the stretcher forward. The sheet tented, empty. It wasn't carrying anyone. It was waiting to the end of the hall. Abdul Rahman watched us, for pole a pale mast. "He wore your name last time," he whispered in Arabic. Last time. Not the storm's first door. A second voice broke through the radio, raw with static. "Security to medical. Hold movements." The lieutenant didn't blink. "Proceed," he told the medics. "Interpreter, sign." Ruiz shifted to block the hall. "Sir, your badge." The jacket parted an inch. The badge beneath was an old design, sun-bleached lanyard, the name block reading Walker over a clearance that no longer existed. "I knew Walker," Ruiz said quietly. "He drowned during a hurricane drill. Years ago." Another text from Kim. "Walker credential expired years. Reactivated tonight." Source unknown. I put my pen to the signature line and wrote, "Verify by voice with OPS now." Then, "Denied pending watch." I tore the sheet off and held it out. No one took it. The power dipped. The hallway leaned. A gust banged the door. The lieutenant's voice stayed level. "Everyone leaves eventually," he said. "Don't make this harder." "Not like this," I said. Ruiz thumbed the emergency. A siren gave 3 barks. Boots pounded close. The medics stopped. The empty stretcher stood between us like a cold idea. When the watch rounded the corner, the lieutenant was gone. He slipped back and vanished. The medics stared at their hands, as if the orders had been a spell already fading. The callback number traced to a desk in ops no one had been sitting at while mourning the storm limped north. The causeway emerged in inches. Kim found an audit trail, pings from a deactivated badge named Walker, a borrowed admin token, 3 camera wideouts timed to gusts. Rational sandbags. Somewhere among them, a hand. Command thanked us for adhering to procedure under weather stress, and booked me on the first plane. Ruiz didn't joke. Abdul Rahman watched me through the clinic window. "He leaves when named," he said. "You named him." Before Wheels Up, I stood by the pier where the old lighthouse had stood and listened to the bay breathe. A patrol boat stitched a line of wake across water. From the far shore, a radio voice carried a single surname. It might have been Walker, or it might have been wind finding a gap, testing a chain, asking to be let through. On the flight line, gulls rode the last tatters of weather like hung notes, and the fences made their separate musics, one for keeping out, one for keeping in.